Actually, about a month ago, I started to offer an idea that perhaps we have been given a great opportunity, cleverly disguised as a global pandemic. Cleverly disguised because we have a perception of the world that is already a misperception. And the miracle is here to help us gain a better perspective on who we are, to help care for one another, and to help build something new that ends the separation that we feel between one another. And I also offered an idea that perhaps us separating physically for a little while is helping us to connect spiritually. And so, in building something new, I ran across this great quote this week from Buckminster Fuller. And I just love this guy. He said, in order to create something new, you can't fight against the old. Oops, somebody was trying to help me out there. Let's just get into this idea for a moment. We've been trying to fight against the existing reality. We're not going to build something new that way. To change something, we need to build a model that makes the old model obsolete. It's like trying to take the old model that we have been using that is meant to create what it already created and trying to create a new thing with it. It's not going to work. And in this new spiritual energy, if we do not tap into how to use it, it's not going to work. I remember the analogy of when I bought my first power saw. If I did not plug it into the electrical outlet, it wasn't going to work. If I took that circular saw and tried to go like this, like it was a hand saw, like the old way, it wasn't going to work. The old ways are not going to work with our new ways of understanding and our new technology of mind. The old ways are not going to work. We have to build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. That model of interacting with one another. That model of being in society, being together. Even in a room together, we have to pay attention to the energy of each other. Because what we're doing is not paying attention to each other. That's the main problem that we have, is that we're caught in our own little perception and we're trying to protect it. And I'll protect it as a human being, even to my death. I don't care about other people as a human being. I'm going to go out and not wear a mask. I'm going to do whatever I want to do, and I'm going to ignore my fellow human beings. I'm going to pollute the environment because I can. And I'm going to ignore or deny that the climate is in crisis. I'm going to ignore or deny the millions and millions of people starving right now who can't get food. I'm going to ignore and deny those people who are dying in the hospitals, those million cases of COVID-19 in the United States alone, so that I can go out and go back to work the way that I wanted to. It's not going to be the way it was. It can't go back to the way it was. There's another wonderful thing that's been going around the internet. It went viral this week from Brené Brown. And I would like to read it to you. And I would like you to pay attention to it because this is very important. We will never go back to being normal. Normal never was. Normal never was. Our pre-corona existence was not normal. Other than that we normalize things like greed, inequity, exhaustion, depletion, extraction, disconnection, confusion, rage, hoarding, hate, lack. We should not long to return to those things, my friends. We are being given an opportunity. There's that word again, opportunity. And I say cleverly disguised as a global pandemic. An opportunity to stitch a new garment. One that fits all of humanity and nature. It's a new garment. It's a new thing. And it must fit everyone. I saw on the news last night that this pandemic could leave over 250 million people in extreme food deprivation and hunger. 250 million, almost the whole population of the United States. That's how many people in the world could go hungry in the next 6 months. What are we doing about it? Are we just focused on our little problems? Are we just focused on trying to get back to the way things were? We can't go back, my friends. That's the way of nature. We can only move forward. We must stitch a new garment, one that fits all of humanity and all of nature. And it really just comes down to paying attention to this moment, to what's going on here, and the energy that we share with one another. Are we loving one another? Are we passionately including one another in this energy of connection with God? Or am I too busy focused on the details, the minutia of my own little existence? Am I including you in with my connection with God? Am I actively saying, this is what I want to do? I want to join with you and not separate from you. I want to help each and every person who doesn't have as much as I do. Last night when I was sitting down to dinner with my beautiful wife, and I realized what an amazing life I have and what an amazing meal she just cooked for us, and how lucky we are to have food on the table and more in the refrigerator and a means to gather more for ourselves. Many people don't have those resources. We are being opened up to our interconnectedness through this cleverly disguised opportunity. We are all interconnected. And if I don't feel my brother's pain, if I don't wish them well and wish them happiness and wish them all the means to be happy, and if I don't wish them peace, how am I going to have it for myself? We're not going back to normal because normal never was. And I'd like to think about this word that keeps coming up. It came up with Brene Brown. It's opportunity. The thing is, the world is changing, and we are being called to change. There's no question about it that change brings up fear. And great change brings up great fear. And of course, we want to distract ourselves from that fear. But I say sit in it just for a moment, and it will change as you emerge into the new reality that's being born here. There's no question about it that it is changing. The world is changing. But do you want to be part of a positive change? Or are you going to attempt to drag your past into the future with you? I ran across another amazing person. She's an author, but an Indian author. Her name is Susanna Arundhati Roy. And she was best known for her novel, The God of Small Things, published in 1997. And Susanna writes, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. Can we do that today? Break with the past. Forget the past entirely. We're not going back. We have to imagine the world anew. Your old habits, your old patterns, your old ways are not going to work anymore. And this pandemic that we are experiencing now is no different. It is a portal, a gateway between one world and the next. This moment we're in now, we're in the portal, we're in a gateway. It's between the world we were experiencing, the one that Brene Brown had so eloquently described, where we normalized greed and anger and all of those things, inequities of our society, right? Are we going to choose to walk through this portal, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and our hatred with us, our avarice and our data banks and our dead ideas and our dead rivers and our smoky skies behind us? Are we going to try to drag all that with us into the future? Or we can walk through lightly, with little luggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. Arundhati Roy. What a great mind. Are we connecting with these kind of minds? Are we listening to these kind of ideas? Because I am, and I invite you to do the same. I invite each and every one of us to not only listen to these kind of ideas, but to put them into practice individually and collectively. I know that there's a tendency to experience fear in the midst of change, and great fear in the midst of great change. But I would love to share with you something I read also yesterday. I was looking for information, and it's all around us. I find a lot of it just on my Facebook feed. This is from Khalil Gibran. Oh, first of all, Charles Fillmore is going to ask us, listen, I release all that does not contribute to my highest good. This is what we say in Unity all the time. But do we actually do it? Do we actually look at what's not contributing to our highest good? Let's look at it and actively release it. It's so great. It's so freeing. You know, in the morning, I meditate in the morning, and I'll start, my mind will start coming up with scenarios, and I can just release them one by one. That's not going to happen. Sorry, don't need that. I'm good. I'm focused. And all of a sudden, I'm focusing on only the good. I'm focusing on only what I really want to accomplish out of my love for humanity, not out of my fear. So I must release all that does not contribute to my highest good. That's the first step. I'm going to release that. Because we are in the beginning stages of the biggest collective awakening the earth has ever seen. And I don't want you to miss it by being focused on your fear. I don't want you to miss it. And I will explain how that fear can be transfigured and transformed. Because it's just energy. If you feel my passionate energy right now, if you can feel it in this message, if I'm yelling and screaming, jumping around, that's the same energy that could get turned into anger, judgment, fear of lack, and further isolation from others. And that's not what we need to do. We need to turn our passion into an acceptance and an inclusion and a passionate joining with one another in a collective awakening, and a focus on that as our goal. So the world is in the beginning stages of this collective awakening. Just think about that. There's so much more to discover. There's so much more to be unfolded in your life. And it's just, don't be afraid of it. We're just like a river entering into an ocean. So I want to read you this quote from Khalil Gibran. It's just wonderful. And I'm so grateful that we can use these analogies to look at our life in these challenging times. Don't let them be challenging. Let them be an opportunity. You know, I remember when I was 20 years old and I ran the San Francisco Marathon. I had never run more than 7 miles in my whole life. And I was 21 at the time. I never ran more than 7 miles. And in fact, my training regimen was to go out and run a couple miles and then go have breakfast or something. I'd be running down the road and I'd see a nice river or a nice meadow and I'd just stop and I'd sit there for hours sometimes. And that's how I trained. I was just really not interested in forcing myself to do something. So came the time for the race, the day of the race, and they said a marathon's 26.2 miles. I said, oh, wow, that's pretty far. That's all I've run before this is about 7 or 8 miles. I said, oh, no problem. I'll just get in the zone and I'll just keep going. And it was like I was entering into brand new territory. You know, after 7 miles, I was like, oh, this is no problem. After 8, it's no problem. 10, 11, 12, I still just felt perfectly fine. Why? Because I did not fear the distance. I'd never run that distance. I didn't know what it was supposed to feel like. I didn't know your legs were supposed to get wobbly like noodles and you're going to pass out about mile 20. I had no idea about any of those things, and so I wasn't afraid of it. And I'm running along, and about mile 20, there was this little hill, and it got bigger and bigger and longer, and it kept going. And finally, the time I got to the top of the hill, yes, my legs were wobbly like noodles, and I could hardly breathe. I was getting dizzy. But just then, somebody splashed me with a bucket of water. It woke me up. And I said, oh, that's part of the deal. At mile 20, yes, your legs wobble like noodles. You get a little dizzy. You think you can't breathe. But then somebody splashes you with the water. So I was like, this is incredible. This is great. The people along the way are cheering you on and they're splashing you with water. And then about mile 22, I found somebody running past me with their eyes closed, just slits. You know, they were meditating while they were running. Must have been a Sri Chinmoy runner. And it was so amazing that I felt the energy of this person before I even saw them come up behind me and just breezed past me like a soft, peaceful cloud. And I looked, after I felt the energy, I looked, and there was this woman running like she was meditating with her eyes closed. And so I said, oh, what a good idea. And I started doing that, just slits, you know. And I was running, and then like 4 or 5 miles, and pretty soon the race was over. I was like, how can it be over? The race is over already. 26 miles. But the last 4 of it, I was in meditation. I was in bliss. I had learned something along the way. And so I think this is a great analogy because we are learning something along the way. We don't know what it's going to be like. We don't have to be afraid of it. We just have to catch the energy that's coming and flow with it, follow it. Pretty soon we'll be running marathons every day. Pretty soon we will be doing things we never thought possible. We'll be healing disease with a thought because I have done that and it is possible. But we'll be healing this world, this planet, this society, and everyone in it by the recognition of the God in them. And we will do it through the power of the truth in us. And what an incredible adventure. What an incredible moment to be alive, to be able to know these truths and to begin to put them into practice. Because we're at the beginning of this collective awakening. We're only at mile like 1 or 2. It's very early in our spiritual development. But we do hold a vision of a world powerfully transformed by the growing movement of our spiritual awakening. So another way to look at it is like Khalil Gibran. It is said that before entering the sea, the river trembles with fear. Isn't that interesting? Fear is not a bad thing. It's just energy. It's trembling because it doesn't know. She looks back at the path that she has traveled from the peaks of the mountains and the long winding road crossing the forests and the villages. And in front of her, she sees an ocean so vast that to enter there seems nothing more than to disappear forever. But there is no other way. The river cannot go back. Nobody can go back. We cannot go back because going back is impossible in existence. The river needs to take the risk of entering the ocean, because then, and only then, will the fear disappear. Because that's where the river will know it's not about disappearing into the ocean, it's about becoming the ocean. You think you're going to lose yourself and your identity if you just let go and disappear into the heart of God. But that's not true. What you will discover is that you are one with God, that you are one and the same, that we are all part of that beautiful spirit, universal mind that we call God. And that if we just allow ourselves to cooperate with the inevitable, to let ourselves go, we'll realize that the fear will disappear. That it's what we wanted all along, was to regain our oneness, is to regain our connection with each other and to all of nature and to the eternal spirit that is at the essence of everything. I want you to know that there are many, many people, souls, minds who are focused right now on the collective awakening and on demonstrating the love of God each and every day. And I know that if you're with us today, that you are one of them. And I invite you to redouble your commitment and to tap into your faith a little deeper and to know that not only are things going to be all right, but we're building something new and wonderful and beautiful. And it's going to absolutely reflect the laws of God, because that's inevitable. And that's where we're heading. And thank you for joining us. Thank you so much for being with us each and every moment of every day, of every week. Thank you for receiving your blessings and for being a blessing in this world. I love you. We're building something new, but it's going to have to be a new model that just makes the old model obsolete. Thank you, guys. I love you.
Yeah, Tony.
Amen.
You have been watching the message from our Sunday celebration service here at Unity on Cape Cod, providing a positive path for spiritual living. Please join us every Sunday morning at 10 a.m. at 147 Walton Ave, Hyannis, Mass. And visit us online at www.unityoncapecod.org.